Welcome to Refugee Assistance Partners New Jersey, or RAP. This is the third in the series of 3 volunteer trainings, which covers guiding principles of refugee assistance in more detail. This training is important to understand key concepts and to fully equip you to be a RAP volunteer. This training includes materials from the Global Refugee Sponsorship Initiative and switchboard.org and is informed by the lived experience of RAP clients and volunteers. This training will cover principles such as culture, power, privacy and confidentiality, and the expectations of volunteers and refugee newcomers. In this training, we hope to build an understanding of the guiding principles' impact on our actions and the actions of refugee newcomers, to develop a connection with the guiding principles based on respectful partnerships, and to hone our skills in managing issues surrounding refugee assistance across a variety of roles. At the end of this training, there are practice scenarios to help us think about situations we sometimes encounter in this work. There is no one right answer. Keep in mind that we are not in the role to solve every problem, nor is it appropriate to do so. Our role is to promote newcomers' strengths and equip them with knowledge and resources of various types to build autonomy and independence. 4 principles guide our actions. These are: consider culture, consider power, respect privacy and confidentiality, and manage expectations. First, let's consider how culture impacts us as volunteers, the clients, and our interactions. Culture is made up of a person's experiences, values, and beliefs as shaped by a variety of factors including medical, legal, government, geography, economics, education, age, gender, family, language, race or ethnicity, and religion, among others. Just because someone comes from a certain country does not mean that a person will share every aspect of culture with another person from the same country. This includes American culture, which is very diverse. Culture can also change over time as a response to new experiences. Culture affects every person's actions and worldviews. Since culture is so complex, it's not possible to know every aspect of a person's culture and how it will affect our relationships. Considering culture is more about finding commonalities and respecting differences as we interact in partnership with the client, volunteers, and the community. Each culture has its own verbal and nonverbal communication. Some cultures rely more heavily on nonverbal communication than other cultures. Because each person's societal and individual culture is different, a gesture that is friendly in one culture might be offensive in another. When greeting or otherwise interacting with a client, observe their words and gestures carefully and take your cues from them about greeting, social distance, and the appropriateness of physical touch such as handshakes. Although each person is unique, it's often helpful to learn about the client's dominant culture in their country of origin. It might be a positive experience to connect clients up with others with similar cultural backgrounds. That said, we must avoid assumptions that they will be friends or even speak the same language, simply because they come from the same country of origin. Again, each person is unique. The best way to learn about someone's customs, traditions, beliefs, and attitudes is simply to ask in an open, unbiased way and incorporate what you learn into your exchanges. You can reciprocate by sharing about your own customs and traditions, acknowledging with the client that you are also unique and do not represent all of American culture. Like culture, power dynamics impact our exchanges with clients and volunteers and will impact our work with community partners as well. The objective of refugee assistance is for the refugee newcomers to become self-sufficient. This involves their ability to make their own plans and decisions to attain their own goals. With each interaction, keep this objective in mind. As a RAP volunteer, you will explore doing with rather than doing for newcomers. A power dynamic exists between all people, including RAP volunteers and refugee newcomers. So remembering this will be critical to a successful volunteer experience. When we first begin, there's an imbalance of power between the clients and the volunteers. Volunteers are holders of information about the community, and volunteers are integrated members of the resettlement community. Our approach needs to be client-centered. Our role is to inform and guide, not dictate from a position of power. The client-volunteer relationship over time is a continual transfer of power to the client, so they too are holders of information about the community, and they too are integrated members of the community. There are 4 different kinds of power. Power over involves a person using their power to dominate another who has less power. The relationship is based on control rather than choice. Resistance is common among people with less power. Refugee newcomers experience people holding power over them in all 3 stages of migration. In pre-flight, perhaps in a situation that led to their displacement. During migration, perhaps in the process of reaching a safe country. And even after resettlement. In refugee newcomers' resettlement experience after their arrival, clients still experience people holding power over them. Shortly after their arrival, clients often have little or no choice in where they live, what jobs they hold, or even how they conduct their day because of government regulations surrounding the timeline and process of refugee resettlement. Power 2 relates to having decision-making authority, power to solve problems, and can be creative and enabling. To recognize and reinforce clients' strengths and skills from the very beginning, don't assume a lack of skills or resources based on someone's background. If clients have power too, then that's our priority. Likewise, just because we as volunteers have the power to do things for a client doesn't mean it's appropriate or empowering to do so. In fact, it might not be necessary or even wanted by the client. Our power to do tasks needs to recede or be transferred to the client as early as possible while equipping them with knowledge and resources to facilitate this. Power with involves people organizing with a common purpose or understanding to achieve collective goals. As we partner with clients and volunteers working in community, a lot of our work is done with clients, but we must recognize that the ultimate goal is independence. The primary goal is to promote power within. Power within refers to self-confidence, self-awareness, and assertiveness. The person knows how power affects their life, and they have the confidence to change power dynamics. Promoting power within is more than just equipping refugee newcomers with the knowledge and resources. It also is about encouragement, friendship, belonging, and respect to build strength and resilience alongside autonomy. In doing so, we create opportunities, balance inequities, and help people move toward self-sufficiency. When teaching a task or giving information, do so in a way that recognizes clients' strengths. Treat adults like adults and reinforce boundaries if a client asks you to do something they can do for themselves, as long as you have appropriately identified and addressed the barriers they might be experiencing. The next principle is respecting privacy and confidentiality. Privacy deals with an individual's right to not be asked to reveal sensitive and personal information about themselves. This includes any details about their backstory or reason for their displacement. Confidentiality is about keeping certain information about someone a secret unless they give permission to disclose it to others. It's common in our work to learn sensitive information about clients. It's important to keep in mind that while newcomers may generally trust volunteers and reveal personal details about their lives, it's up to them to decide how much of their lives to share and with whom. All volunteers must sign and comply with our confidentiality agreement, not just for sensitive identifying information, but also details about the client's personal lives, both in their past and currently. Protecting refugee newcomers' privacy and confidentiality might avoid situations which could endanger or re-traumatize the person. Remember, refugee newcomers are the owners of their own stories. Their stories are not ours to share. We must carefully respect newcomers' privacy and confidentiality and question if and when it is appropriate to share information, and only with the client's informed consent. Some strategies for protecting clients' privacy and confidentiality are to inform refugee newcomers of their right to privacy, inform clients on an ongoing basis they have the right to say no, Explain the importance of sharing certain pieces of information. Even if newcomers choose to share details of their lives with others, it does not mean volunteers should do the same. If information is shared, clients should share for themselves in their own words if at all possible. An interpreter might be required to respect this right. Also respect the privacy of newcomers' homes. Ask before visiting or going into private areas. It is important to keep the RAP team and RAP leaders apprised of changes in client situations. If any questions arise about an issue surrounding privacy or confidentiality, ask a RAP team leader for guidance. The last principle concerns managing the expectations of RAP volunteers as well as of refugee newcomers. How people expect certain things to be might be different than their actuality, and what people expect to happen might not always occur. As we learned in the first training presentation, working with someone who is adjusting to a new environment can take time and rarely unfolds as expected. As volunteers, our expectations will affect our actions and goals. Volunteers might have high expectations of what they can achieve and what their relationships with the refugee newcomers will be like. Or we might make assumptions which underestimate a newcomer's capabilities or underestimate the effects of challenges they face. It's important to identify what assumptions we have and how they influence our expectations. Frequent, open, clear communication can avoid uncomfortable situations stemming from unrealistic expectations. Some volunteer expectations reflect hopes rather than goals. For example, refugees will quickly adapt to their new cultural environment. Refugees will be happy and remain happy in the resettlement country. Refugees and volunteers will become great friends. Refugees will be grateful for RAP's efforts. Again, these expectations might not happen in the way we hope for. Some volunteer expectations are not based on client-centered goals. For example, refugees will not move out of their resettlement community, or expecting that by the end of the assistance period, refugees will be fully integrated into society, including speaking and understanding the local language, finishing their secondary education, or securing employment. In fact, the path of resettlement is not a smooth one and can often include both setbacks and leaps forward. Our definition of success might be completely different from the client's view. Refugee newcomers also have expectations, which may or may not be realistic. For example, the weather and climate will be a certain way. All the homes are large. The cost of living will not be high. They will not face discrimination in the resettlement community. RAP volunteers are responsible for support in every aspect of their lives. RAP is financially responsible for almost every expense. Some of these unrealistic newcomer expectations can be managed with clear communication on the part of RAP volunteers. Some newcomer expectations can lead to hope or discouragement and may change over time. For example, clients will become great friends with volunteers. There are many employment opportunities in the resettlement country. Newcomers who are well educated or proficient in the local language will find employment easier. These expectations may or may not hold true. We need to manage these expectations so we promote resilience and hope in the face of unanticipated barriers. Some newcomer expectations can inform and create future client-driven goals. For example, they will be able to have their family members abroad reunite with them. They will be able to resume their studies at the point where they previously stopped. Remember, initial goals are set in partnership with clients with the aim of equipping clients along the way. Some strategies for managing expectations are to reflect on expectations, how realistic they are, and what assumptions are being made. Maintain respectful, honest communication with refugee newcomers and try to manage expectations early. Address refugee newcomers' expectations when they arise. Remember, you can't prepare for every scenario. Accept that you cannot fix every situation, nor is it appropriate to do so. Be supportive of the ups and downs in newcomers' lives as we work together to remove barriers to success as much as possible and equip clients for autonomy and independence. Now let's look at some practice scenarios. I encourage you to pause the presentation after each scenario is read and think about the prompt. There is no one right answer. These scenarios are adapted from real-life situations that we've encountered in the past. They're designed to encourage you to think about the nuances of RAP's work and be able to apply what you've learned. Let's look at the first scenario. Yosim and his children arrived in their resettlement community a month ago. They had fled their country of origin after their hometown was attacked by militia. Yosim lost contact with all his family except for one sister, Tegan, who lives in a refugee camp. Tegan barely receives any financial support in the camp, so Yosim has been sending some of his monthly allowance to his sister. Mishka is a volunteer who tutors Yosim in English. They're talking about Yosim's family when Yosim reveals that he has been sending money to his sister. He asks Mishka not to tell anyone about his actions. How should Mishka respond to this request? In this scenario, there are both confidentiality issues and boundary issues. It was understandable but unfair for Yosim to tell Mishka to keep secrets from her RAP team, especially since this information will undoubtedly affect the work of the other team members and might lead to legal and financial issues. One possible action could be to tell Yosim this. Another possibility is to tell Yosim to find out what consequences this could have so he can make an informed choice about his family's money. Mishka can ask herself, what is the best way to respect Yosim and to make sure Yosim has enough information to make a choice which supports the goal of self-sufficiency? In the next scenario, Hamad and Samina are refugee newcomers who are a married couple. Christoph is a volunteer who delivers fresh garden produce to their home on occasion during the summer months. When Christoph visits with them, only the husband speaks with the volunteer. Christoph has never spoken with the wife. What might this indicate about the relationship between the people in this scenario? This situation might lead Christoph to make assumptions about the nature of the couple's relationship or their view of him, without taking into consideration their culture or personal preferences for interacting. Christoph might ask if the wife would like to meet him, simply to put the friendly invitation out there, but Christoph must respect the husband's answer. Or Christoph could leave it alone and not guess about the relationship dynamics and just be gracious in making deliveries. Let's look at the next scenario. Giselle is a refugee newcomer who escaped torture in her country of origin and is now a practicing nurse in the United States. Manny is a volunteer who writes various types of grants for RAP. Manny feels moved by Giselle's compelling story of resilience and success. Manny decides to write for a grant which asks for client narratives and photos. How should Manny approach the choices involved in this grant writing project? Many might ask themselves, what is it about Giselle's story that is compelling and uplifting? It's important to tell a story about success and not focused on past trauma. This is one situation that it would be most effective if Giselle told her own story. It's worth giving the opportunity to Giselle to share because it could be both helpful and healing. Remember, identifying photos are especially sensitive information. If Giselle does not consent, then none of her information can be used for this grant. Manny might choose a different client to invite or choose a different approach to this grant that might not include photos or other confidential material. Let's look at the last scenario. Carla is a volunteer who is very passionate and energetic. She's volunteered for many activities and has been a great help in getting a newcomer family settled after arrival when there was a lot to do. However, 2 months into the settlement, the group becomes aware that Carla is visiting the family almost every day of the week, sometimes unannounced and without telling the rest of the group. The group is concerned that she's not setting boundaries and is not respecting the family's privacy and independence. How can the group approach this issue? This is a situation which is affected by all 4 principles, both for the clients, Carla, and the other RAP team members. How does the client's family's culture impact the frequency of Carla's visits? Does Carla herself have different personal boundaries from the family or the other WRAP team members as it relates to her culture? Does Carla's involvement indicate a power imbalance since she goes there unannounced? Does the family feel comfortable telling Carla no? Is this respectful of the family's privacy? And how can the other WRAP team members express their expectations to Carla? Honest communication between everyone involved is critical here to clear up misunderstandings, set boundaries, ensure all viewpoints are expressed, and the client family controls the situation based on identified goals and respect as it relates to promoting independence. In this training, we discussed 4 guiding principles to refugee assistance: considering culture, considering power, respecting privacy and confidentiality, and managing expectations. We also reviewed several practice scenarios. Thank you for completing the 3-part introductory volunteer training series. Remember to take the quiz at the end to fulfill the training qualification. We invite you at this time to contact a WRAP leader or your volunteer coordinator to engage in an activity that's the right fit for you. Thank you for being a WRAP volunteer.